Zoraida, Miss Ola May. Watkins used to say the whole block could tell what day it was just by what was hanging on somebody's clothesline and what was rattling in somebody's kitchen before the sun came all the way up. That was the rhythm of it. That was the survival of it. Before I get into the 25 things I want to share with you today, let me tell you where this comes from: family. Every one of these came out of conversations with my own grandmother, with the women who sat on her porch drinking sweet tea and remembering things nobody had written down, with men who worked with their hands because that's all anybody let them work with, and they turned it into something nobody could take away. There was a kind of knowing that lived in the hands of black women in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. A knowing that didn't come from a book, didn't come from a class, came from watching her mother, who watched her mother. We're going to walk through 25 of these skills today. Some of them will make you smile. Some of them are going to hit you right in the chest, because by the time we get to the end of this list, you're going to understand something about Big Mama that maybe you always felt, but never had words for. Close your eyes for just a second. Picture a kitchen with linoleum peeling up at the corner, a stove with one burner that ran hotter than the others, and a woman standing over it who could feed 12 people out of what most folks today would call nothing. Hey family, I'm James, and today we're going back, way back, to the kitchens, the gardens, the front rooms, and the back porches where Big Mama did the things nobody taught her in school, because nobody was fixing to teach a black woman in the rural South anything except how to survive. Now, before we get into it, if this is your first time sitting with me, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. This is a place where we keep these memories from disappearing altogether. We remember on purpose here, family. So go on, hit subscribe, ring that bell, and let's get into these 25 survival skills Big Mama carried in her hands, in her head, and in her heart. Number 1, stretching a dollar until it near about screamed. Big Mama did not have a budget spreadsheet. She had a coffee can, maybe 2, one for the light bill, one for whatever came up that shouldn't have. She knew, down to the penny, what 50 cents of cornmeal could turn into over the course of a week, and she knew it without writing a single number down. My own grandmother used to divide her grocery money before she ever left the house. This much for the meat, this much for the greens, this much held back no matter what, because something always came up, and she was not about to be caught without. Back in those days, a woman raising 6 children on a husband's factory wage of maybe $60 a week had to make that money do things money was not built to do. She'd buy the cheap cuts, neck bones, pig feet, the parts the butcher near about gave away, and turn them into a pot that fed the whole family for 2 days straight. She knew which store had a special on Thursday. She knew the man at the corner store would let her run a tab if she needed it, because she'd never once let that tab go unpaid. This wasn't poverty thinking, family. This was mastery. This was a woman who understood the exact weight and value of every single thing that came into her house, and she made sure nothing left it wasted. You won't see that today. Most folks couldn't tell you what they spent on groceries last week if you held a gun to their head. But Big Mama could tell you what she spent on flour in 1958. Number 2, canning and putting up the garden for winter. The kitchen would smell like vinegar and hot glass for 2-3 days straight in late summer. And if you grew up around it, that smell is stitched into you, somewhere you can't shake it loose from. Big Mama and the women around her would can tomatoes, string beans, peaches, pickles, chow, anything the garden gave them that they couldn't eat fast enough. Mason jars lined up on the counter like soldiers, lids popping and sealing themselves with that little sound that meant it worked, meant that jar was good, meant come January, when the ground was hard and nothing was growing, there'd still be a taste of July sitting on a shelf in the cellar. Now, Big Mama, she used to say a garden wasn't just for summer. A garden, done right, fed you all year if you knew what you were doing with it. And she knew. She knew how long to boil the jars. She knew the exact moment steam told her the seal had taken. She knew which tomatoes were too far gone and which ones still had a fight left in them. This was chemistry. This was preservation science being done by a woman who never set foot in a laboratory, who probably didn't finish past the 8th grade because school wasn't something the world made easy for her to finish. And yet she understood food safety and fermentation better than most folks with a degree today. Folks don't do this anymore. And that's a shame, because there was something about opening a jar in February that she put up herself in August. It tasted like patience. It tasted like somebody thought ahead for you. Number 3, turning a flour sack into a Sunday dress. This one might be hard for some of you to picture if you didn't live it or hear about it firsthand. Flour, back in those days, came in cotton sacks. Printed cotton, sometimes with little flowers or checks on it, because the companies figured out that women were reusing them and started printing patterns on purpose to make them prettier. Big Mama didn't throw a single one of those sacks away. She washed them, bleached them if the print was too strong, and turned them into dish towels, pillowcases, undergarments, and, when she had 2 or 3 that matched close enough, a little girl's Sunday dress. My granddaddy worked 6 days a week and never once complained. But the money he brought home didn't stretch to store-bought dresses for 4 daughters. So Big Mama sat up at night with a needle and thread and a sack that used to hold self-rising flour. And by Sunday morning there was a dress on that child that looked like it came from a store window, if the store window sold love instead of fabric. We didn't have much, but we had everything that mattered. And part of what mattered was a woman who refused to let her children walk into church looking like they had nothing. That right there, that kind of resourcefulness. This is something we need to bring back, not the flour sacks necessarily, but the spirit behind it. The refusal to let lack become shame. Number 4, making soap from scratch. Lye soap. If you know, you know. That smell, sharp and clean in a way that store-bought soap never quite manages. Big Mama would save every bit of grease and fat all year. Bacon drippings, the fat trimmed off a roast, anything that would have gone down the drain in most kitchens today. And she'd render it down, mix it with lye and water in a big cast iron pot outside, because the fumes were not something you wanted trapped in a house, and she'd stir it for what felt like forever, watching it thicken, watching the color change, knowing by look and by smell exactly when it was ready to pour into the molds. That soap washed clothes. It washed bodies. Some grandmothers swore by a bar of it for poison ivy, for a bee sting, for a ring around a collar that nothing else would touch. Child, let me tell you something. There was no waste in that woman's kitchen. Not one drop of fat, not 1 hour of her time. Everything got used. Everything got turned into something else useful before it ever hit a trash can. Because trash cans were for things that truly had no more use left in them. And in Big Mama's world, almost nothing qualified. Number 5, rendering lard and never wasting a drop of fat. This one walks right alongside the soap making, but it deserves its own moment because lard was the backbone of an entire kitchen. Big Mama would render fat from a hog, sometimes her own, sometimes one she bought a share of with 2 or 3 other families because a whole hog was too much for one household and too good a deal to pass up split 3 ways. She'd cook that fat down slow, low heat, patient hands, straining it into tins that would sit in a cool corner of the kitchen and last for months. That lard fried the chicken. That lard made the pie crust flake the way a good pie crust is supposed to. That lard seasoned a cast iron skillet that had been in the family longer than some of the children had been alive. Nothing about a hog went to waste in that house. Not the fat, not the feet, not the ears, not the skin. Big Mama could tell you exactly what part of the animal made the best stock, and exactly which part you fried, and which part you boiled low and slow until it fell off whatever bone it was hanging on to. This wasn't about being cheap. This was about respect. Respect for the animal, respect for the money it took to get it, respect for the mouths waiting to be fed. Number 6, doctoring the family before the doctor would even see you.
You're gonna be just fine.
Now, this is one of the heavier ones, family, so stay with me. In a lot of towns across the South in the 1940s and 50s, a black family calling for a doctor might wait hours, might get turned away at the front door and sent around back, might not be able to afford the visit at all, even if the doctor would see them. So Big Mama became the doctor. She knew what a fever that high meant and what to do about it before it got worse. She knew castor oil. She knew mustard plasters for a chest cold. She knew how to draw a splinter with a poultice made from things growing right there in her own yard. She knew which root to boil for a stomach ache, which leaf to steep for a headache. And she knew, this part matters, she knew when something was past what she could handle at home. And she would move heaven and earth to get that child seen by somebody with a medical degree, even if it meant walking miles or begging a ride or paying with eggs instead of dollars. This wasn't superstition, family, whatever anybody wants to call it now. This was generations of accumulated knowledge, passed mother to daughter, about how the human body works and how to keep it working when the system built around you was not built to help. Folks don't do this anymore, and in a lot of ways, that's progress. Nobody wants their grandmother forced into being a doctor because a real one wouldn't open the door. But there was wisdom in those hands that I don't think we should let ourselves forget. Number 7, piecing a quilt out of what was left. Every scrap had a second life in Big Mama's house. A shirt too worn to patch again, a dress a child had outgrown, a remnant from somebody's Sunday best that had finally given out. None of it got thrown away.
See that right there?
It got cut into squares, sorted by color and pattern in a basket that sat by her chair. And on winter nights, by lamplight, she'd piece it all together into a quilt that would keep a family warm for 20 years or more. Now, these weren't just blankets, family. Some of these quilts told stories, if you knew how to read them. A square from the dress your mother wore the day she got married. A square from the shirt your daddy had on the day he came home from the war. A quilt like that wasn't fabric. It was a family history you could wrap yourself in on a cold January night. Big Mama, she used to say a quilt made with love kept the cold out better than one bought from a store. And I believe her because I still remember sleeping under one she made, and I remember it feeling like being held. Number 8, raising chickens right there in the backyard. Every yard on the block had a little coop, some chicken wire, a rooster that woke the whole street up, whether the street wanted waking or not. Big Mama knew every one of those hens by the sound of its cluck, knew which one was broody, knew which one to watch because she'd been sneaking off the nest to hide eggs somewhere in the yard instead of laying where she was supposed to. Eggs for breakfast, eggs for baking, and when a hen stopped laying reliably, well, Sunday dinner had a way of solving that problem too. This was not a hobby. This was food security in an era when a black family could not always count on being treated fairly by a grocer when credit could be pulled without warning, when the whole system was built to keep you unstable. A backyard full of chickens meant you had eggs no matter what happened at the store that week. It meant protein you controlled, start to finish, with your own 2 hands. My granddaddy built that coop himself out of scrap lumber, and Big Mama tended it every single morning before the sun was even fully up, because those hens needed feeding whether she felt like it or not, and that's just how it was done. Number 9, growing a garden that fed the whole family. Behind nearly every house, there was a garden, and it was not decorative. Collards, tomatoes, okra, butter beans, sweet potatoes, corn, rows of it, tended by hand, weeded on your knees in the heat because there was no other way to do it. Big Mama could tell you by looking at the soil whether it needed more compost. She knew when to plant by the signs. Some of it passed down as almanac wisdom, some of it just decades of watching the same patch of earth do the same thing at roughly the same time every year. The whole block would smell it on Sunday morning. Greens simmering with a piece of fatback, corn on the stove, and every bit of it traced back to a garden that same hand had turned over with a hoe back in April. This garden was insurance. If the money ran short, if the job got cut, if the world did what the world liked to do to black families trying to get by, there was still a garden out back that didn't care about any of that. It just grew because Big Mama made sure it did. Number 10, making one chicken feed a dozen people. This right here is where Big Mama's genius really showed itself. One chicken, maybe 2, if it was a good week, had to feed a family that might include 6 children, 2 grandparents, and whoever else showed up hungry that Sunday, because somebody always showed up hungry, and Big Mama never once turned a hungry person away from her table. So the chicken got fried, and the drippings got saved for gravy, and the gravy got poured over rice and biscuits to make sure everybody's plate had substance, even if it didn't all have meat on it. The neck, the back, the giblets, none of it went to waste. All of it went into a pot for stock or dressing or a soup later in the week. She'd count heads before she ever picked up that knife, and she knew exactly how to portion it, so the man of the house, who worked the hardest physical labor, got the biggest piece, and the smallest children still felt like they got plenty, even if plenty meant a wing and a leg split 2 ways. Nobody left that table still hungry. That was the rule, and Big Mama would go without herself before she'd let that rule get broken. Now family, let me tell you something real quick. These skills I'm sharing with you today, they're a piece of what we almost lost. I put together something called the Soul Roots Cookbook, 100 forgotten Black American recipes, written out the way Big Mama would have done it. Complete, patient, and true. Every dish, every measurement, every little trick she never wrote down because she never needed to. It's all in there now, so it doesn't disappear the way so much else already has. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. You can also scan the code on your screen right now if that's easier for you. Don't let these recipes disappear the way the stories already are. All right, family, let's keep going. Number 11, mending instead of replacing. A hole in a sock did not mean a new pair of socks. It meant Big Mama pulled out her darning egg, a wooden egg-shaped tool she'd slide inside the sock to hold the shape while she wove new thread right across the hole until it was solid again. A tear in a shirt meant a patch, cut carefully from an old piece of fabric, sewn on so neat you'd have to look twice to know it was there at all. Shoes with a worn-through sole didn't get thrown out either. You took them to the man who resoled shoes for a living, and he'd give them another year, maybe 2. Big Mama's philosophy was simple. You fixed what could be fixed before you ever spent money on something new. That was just how it was done. And there was a discipline in
Look
it,
at that
a
perfect stitch,
respect
Sweet Pea.
for what you already had
I did it,
that
Mama.
I think has slipped away from us in a world where it's often cheaper to throw something out than to fix it. She taught her daughters to sew before they could ride a bicycle because a needle and thread was not optional knowledge in her house.
Bless your heart. We
It
appreciate
was
so much.
survival knowledge, plain and simple. Number 12, keeping a jar for whoever needed it. Some families called it the sugar jar.
Thank you kindly.
Some called it the emergency can. Whatever the name, nearly every household on the block had a little something set aside, not for themselves necessarily, but for whichever neighbor came knocking that week short on rent, short on medicine, short on whatever it was that month. Big Mama believed, all the way down to her bones, that today's help was tomorrow's help, right back at you. She'd send a plate of food over to a family she knew was struggling without ever once making them feel small for needing it. She'd loan out $5 knowing full well it might not come back for a month, and she'd never bring it up if it didn't, because that wasn't the point. The point was, nobody on that block was supposed to go without if the block as a whole had anything left to give. This is one of the things I miss the most when I look at how folks live now. Family, everybody locked up tight in their own house, their own business, not knowing their neighbor's name half the time. Back then, your business was the block's business, in the best way. Somebody was always watching out for you, and you were always watching out for somebody else. Now, before we keep going, I want to hear from you, family. What's one skill your Big Mama had that you wish somebody had written down before she passed? Something you only half remember her doing, and you'd give anything to have watched her do it just one more time so you could learn it properly. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one of them, and I promise you, somebody else reading this is going to recognize exactly what you're talking about, because we lost a lot of the same things at the same time, even living in different cities, different states. Let's keep bringing it back to light. All right, family, let's keep going. Number 13, midwifery, when the hospital wasn't an option. In a lot of rural counties across the South, Black women simply were not welcome to deliver their babies at the local hospital, or the hospital that would take them was hours away, or the cost was more money than the family had ever seen in one place. So the community had its own doctors, and most of them were women, midwives, some trained formally, most trained by watching their own mothers catch babies for decades before them. Big Mama's own mother might have been one of these women, walking miles in the middle of the night with a bag of clean rags and boiled instruments, delivering a baby by lamplight in a farmhouse with no running water, and doing it with a steady hand because panic was a luxury she could not afford. These women knew when a birth was going wrong before modern equipment could have told them. They knew by instinct, by decades of hands-on experience, exactly what to do in the moment it mattered most. And most of the time, most of the babies born in Black communities across the rural South in the first half of the last century came into this world through the hands of a woman like this. A woman with no medical degree and more medical wisdom in her fingertips than half the doctors who wouldn't have treated her family in the first place. Number 14. Preserving meat before there was a freezer in every house. Salting, curing, smoking. Big Mama knew all three, and she knew them well enough to keep a family fed through a whole winter off of one good hog. The smokehouse out back was small, maybe not much bigger than an outhouse, but inside it hung hams and shoulders and slabs of bacon, curing slow over hickory smoke for days, sometimes weeks. She knew exactly how much salt to use, because too little and the meat would spoil, too much and it would be inedible. She knew the color the smoke should turn the meat, and she knew by smell alone when something had gone wrong. This was food science passed down without a single textbook, precision measured by feel and by years of watching it done right and watching it, sometimes, done wrong, and learning from both. My granddaddy worked 6 days a week and never once complained. But even his wages couldn't have kept that family fed through a southern winter without Big Mama's smokehouse holding up its end. Number 15, teaching a child to read by lamplight when the schools would not. This is where it starts to get heavier, family, so stay with me. In a lot of counties, black children were given the leftover books, torn pages, missing covers, years out of date, handed down from the white school once they were done with them. Some counties barely funded black schools at all. Some children could only go to school a few months a year because they were needed in the fields the rest of the time. So, Big Mama, many nights, sat at the kitchen table after a full day of labor with a Bible or a hand-me-down primer, teaching a child their letters by the light of a kerosene lamp, because she was not going to let the world's refusal to properly educate her children be the final word on whether or not they learned to read. Some of these women could barely read themselves, and they taught anyway, sounding out words alongside their children, learning right there next to them. This right here, this is something we need to bring back, not the hardship, the determination, the refusal to accept that a closed door meant the end of the road. Number 16, building and repairing the home with your own 2 hands. A leaking roof did not mean calling somebody. It meant Big Mama's husband, or her father, or her brother climbing up there himself with whatever materials could be scrounged or afforded, patching it before the next rain came through. A broken chair got its leg reglued and reinforced instead of thrown out. A porch that was starting to sag got shored up with lumber somebody had saved from another project entirely. This wasn't a choice most of the time. It was necessity, because a contractor cost money the family didn't have. And even if they had the money, plenty of contractors wouldn't take the job or would charge double for it. So the men and women in these households became carpenters, plumbers, electricians, whatever the moment demanded, teaching themselves and teaching each other, passing the knowledge down the same way the cooking got passed down. Hand to hand, generation to generation, no manual required. Number 17, passing down a recipe with no measurements at all. If you ever stood in Big Mama's kitchen and asked her how much of something to add, she likely just handed you the container and said, "Put enough."
No recipe
And if
card.
that frustrated you as a
Just
child, I understand, because it frustrated me too. But what she was really teaching you was something deeper than a recipe. She was teaching you to trust your own senses, to know by smell when the roux had gone far enough, to know by sound when the oil was hot enough for frying, to know by the way the batter looked when it had been stirred just right. This is a kind of knowledge that doesn't fit on an index card. It lives in the hands, and it only transfers through time spent standing right next to somebody, watching, failing, trying again, until one day your hands know it too, the same way hers did. Number 18, hiding money where nobody would think to look. Big Mama did not trust banks, and honestly, given the history, she had every reason not to. Plenty of black families in that era were denied basic banking services, or treated with suspicion the moment they walked through the door, or lost what little they'd saved when a bank failed, and black depositors were the last ones made whole, if they were made whole at all. So she kept cash, in a mason jar buried in the garden, sewn into a mattress, tucked inside a Bible where she knew nobody would think to look, because nobody in that house was rifling through scripture looking for money. This wasn't paranoia, family. This was a woman who had watched the systems around her fail people who looked like her over and over, and she built her own system instead, one she controlled completely, one nobody could take from her with a signature or a policy change. Number 19, knowing which neighbor needed help without ever being told. Big Mama had a sense for it, a way of noticing when a neighbor's porch light hadn't come on in a few nights, or when the children next door seemed a little thinner than they used to, or when a woman down the street stopped coming to church and nobody had checked on her yet, and she would go. She wouldn't wait for somebody to ask. She'd show up with a plate, a jar of preserves, and offer to watch the children for an afternoon, and she would never make it feel like charity. She made it feel like what family does for family, because in her mind, everybody on that block was family, whether the blood connected them or not. This right here, this is something we need to bring back. The instinct, the willingness to notice somebody else's struggle before they ever had to say a word about it. Number 20, keeping faith when there was no logical reason left to keep it. Big Mama prayed over everything, the meals, the sick, the children heading off into a world that did not always treat them fairly, the men heading to jobs that could disappear without warning. She prayed not because things were easy, but specifically because they weren't. Her faith wasn't naive. She had seen enough hardship to know exactly what she was up against, and she chose every single day to believe that something bigger than the hardship was watching over her family. This wasn't just Sunday morning faith. This was faith stitched into every single task on this list. The canning, the gardening, the midwifery, the mending. She believed her hands were doing holy work, even when the work looked like nothing more than stirring a pot or threading a needle. God shows up in the kitchen, not just in the church, and Big Mama knew that better than almost anybody. Number 21. Protecting her children with a kind of vigilance most folks today can't fully imagine. Big Mama knew which roads were safer to walk after dark and which weren't. She knew which stores to avoid, which ones would treat her children with basic decency, and which ones wouldn't. She taught her sons how to carry themselves in certain situations to come home safe. And she taught her daughters things too, quieter things, things whispered rather than said outright. This wisdom wasn't written down anywhere. It was passed the same way the recipes were passed, through repetition, through example, through a mother's hand gripping a child's hand just a little tighter, walking past a certain corner. This wasn't fear ruling her life. It was love, sharpened into instinct, applied every single day so that her children came home to her every single night. That vigilance was its own kind of survival skill, and it came at a cost nobody should have had to pay, but she paid it anyway, because that's what a mother does. Now family, you've been here with me through most of this list, and that tells me something about you. It tells me you understand that what we're talking about is not just old recipes and old habits. It's a record of who these women were and how they survived and how they loved the people around them. I know some of you are thinking, I should have asked my grandmother more questions. I should have written some of this down while she was still here to tell it. Family, I've been doing this long enough to know that one of these days sometimes never comes. That's why I put together the Soul Roots Cookbook. 100 recipes, written out complete, the way Big Mama made them, with every tip and every secret included. So this particular piece of it, at least, does not get lost the way so much else already has. You can keep relying on memory alone, piecing together what you can still remember, or you can have it all in one place, preserved the right way, starting today. The link is in the description and pinned right up top in the comments. Scan the code on your screen if that's easier. I did my part putting this together. The rest is yours, family. Number 22, telling the stories out loud because nothing else was written down. Big Mama was a historian, whether anybody ever called her that or not. She held the family tree in her head, who married who was born where, who passed and when, and how. Stories about a great-grandfather nobody living had ever met, but everybody could describe, because she told it so many times it became part of the family's bones. In a lot of black families, especially those with roots reaching back before or just after emancipation, there were no official records, no family Bibles with pages filled out generation after generation, sometimes not even birth certificates that got the dates right. So the oral history was the record, Big Mama's memory was the archive. And every time she told a story at the dinner table, she wasn't just entertaining the children. She was making sure that history survived one more generation, passed mouth to ear, the same way it had been passed to her. Number 23. Sitting with a sick neighbor through the night so their family could sleep. This is a smaller thing on the surface, but it says everything about who these women were. When somebody in the community fell seriously ill, there was almost always a rotation of women who would come sit through the night, bringing cool cloths for a fever, keeping watch so an exhausted mother could finally close her eyes for a few hours, praying quietly in the corner of a room that smelled like sickness and Vicks and worry. Big Mama did this for neighbors more times than anybody could count, and she never once asked to be thanked for it, and she never once refused when it was her turn to sit. This was community care built entirely on trust and reciprocity, no formal system behind it. Just women who understood, all the way down, that nobody should have to face a hard night completely alone. Number 24. Making a way out of no way, over and over again, without ever once making it look hard. This one is less a single skill and more the sum of everything we've talked about today. Big Mama had a way of facing a problem that looked completely unsolvable. No money, no doctor, no school, no safety net of any kind, and finding a way through it anyway, using whatever was in her hands and whatever was in her head. She did this so many times, so consistently, that her children and grandchildren grew up believing this was simply how the world worked, that problems always had solutions if you were patient and resourceful enough to find them. It was only later, looking back as adults, that most of us realized what a singular kind of genius that actually was. She never called it genius. She called it Tuesday. Number 25, holding the whole family together, especially when it was falling apart. Family, this is the one I want to leave you with, because it's the one that matters more than all the rest combined. Every skill on this list, the canning, the sewing, the gardening, the doctoring, the praying, all of it served one purpose in the end. It kept the family together. Big Mama was the center of gravity in that house. When a husband passed too young, when a child got into trouble, when the money ran out, or the crop failed, or the world outside the front door did what it liked to do to families like hers, Big Mama was the one who did not break. She held. She found a way to feed everybody anyway. She found a way to keep the lights on anyway. She found a way to make Sunday dinner happen anyway. Because as long as that table was set and that family was gathered around it, something unbreakable was still standing, no matter what else had fallen down around them. And when she finally passed, because every one of these women eventually did, the family she held together for so many decades had to learn, all at once, how much of the weight she had been carrying without a single complaint. That's the skill underneath all the other skills. That's the one nobody teaches, because nobody can. You either become the person who holds the family together or you don't. And Big Mama became that person every single day of her life, whether anybody ever thanked her properly for it or not. If this brought something back for you, go ahead and hit that like button right now. Subscribe so you're here every single time we do this. And drop a comment for me, family. Which one of these 25 skills did your Big Mama have that you didn't fully appreciate until she was already gone? I read every single one of them, and I promise you somebody else is going to read your comment and feel exactly what you're feeling right now. Share this one with somebody in your family who still remembers her. The aunt, the cousin, the sibling who was closer to her than the rest of you, who might need to hear these 25 things put into words the way I've put them today. This might be the nudge they need to sit down and write a little of it themselves before it's gone for good. Subscribe, family, because next time we're going somewhere just as real as today. We've got more of these stories waiting, more of these women waiting to be remembered properly. Big Mama did not have an easy road. Nobody handed her a single thing, but she built a family, she built a home, and she built a legacy out of nothing but her own 2 hands and a will that would not bend. That's not a small thing. That's not something we should ever let ourselves forget. I'll see you next time, family.